Sure. I won't
Maybe.
hold it against
Whoops.
you. I won't
Whoops.
hold it against you.
Okay. Okay.
And yeah, I think everything else you said, I have no qualms with. Um, Kenny's a great guy. Hopefully, I can hold a candle to him with this interview. So, yeah, unless you have anything else, we can jump right into it.
All right. Let's get started.
All right. So, walk me through your resume. Walk me through how you got to this point.
So, how I got to this point. So I was born out in San Jose, California. And I went to school at UC Berkeley. I majored in integrative biology, and I have a minor in public policy. And right now, I'm pursuing an entrepreneurship certificate through the extension school. And I started off doing a lot of biology research. So initially, I did research at Stanford on like clinical research. Then I moved on to UCSF. Did some more like molecular and cell biology research, and then eventually I pivoted and I started doing politics. So I was the founder of the Forward Party out in Berkeley, and we ended up being the biggest and most dedicated not left not right forward party, and we were able to phone bank for political candidates, and I was able to in addition to that conduct legislative research with council member Ben Bartlett for a universal basic income bill that's still pending. And then after I did that, during COVID, it was COVID, everyone went back home. So I decided to start a startup with someone I met from Stanford at a political rally. We started a social media for politicians kind of like app. And we were able to see how politicians branded themselves. And I led a team of people in sales. We did marketing. We also dealt with a lot of legal stuff. And we were accepted in the Berkeley Skydeck program, which is like the second best accelerator. And afterward, we all went to our real jobs. So Michael, I think he's at TikTok right now, working as like a machine learning engineer, and I'm back in school, like eating dinners with my girlfriend and taking classes. And then I did a market research analyst internship with One Fair Wage, because I wanted to do what politicians are actually doing with One Fair Wage. So I led a marketing research team, and we talked to a bunch of activists in New York City, and that was a really great experience because I got to meet a ton of New Yorkers, because someone like me from California, like I didn't know anyone from New York, and I started interacting with that. And right now I'm back home with my grandparents. I'm helping out my parents with their flower shop. So I led a team of 5, coordinated across 3 departments, designed the landing page, and raised $10,000 in 3 months, increased sales by 570% over the prior year. So essentially, like what I'm doing right now is I'm selling flowers to people. And 5% of those profits go to the Mando Legal Clinic out in Chicago. So I'm helping out, donating to Chicago. And I was going to take, someone offered me like a potential internship with Kamala Harris, but like, my parents were like, needed my help. And my sister is like 8 and she needs like a reading tutor. So I had to stay back home, help my parents out with their business, teach my sister how to read, and also take the trek up to Berkeley to have dinner with my girlfriend. So, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm also on the side running a podcast called The Robots Are Coming, and I've interviewed Stanford, Berkeley, and UChicago law professors. I've interviewed 10 UChicago law professors, and I'm pending to interview 2 or 3 UChicago Booth professors. And the third thing I'm doing is I'm writing a book on the naval war of Vietnam, because my grandpa actually served as he was an intelligence officer as part of the Army during the Vietnam War. So he worked closely with a bunch of Marines, Air Force captains, and he's responsible for mapping out the terrain, being that smart guy that tells everyone else what to do. And I'm just like, going over some naval charts and some Vietnamese documents from the Northerners, because Vietnamese people were like, I don't know, the communists are like, I don't know what they're doing. And my grandpa's helping me out, like chart out that book, and I'm writing. So those are the main things I'm doing right now, and that's my resume. And where I'd like to go next is I like to go to the University of Chicago JD MBA program to, first of all, like polish my professional skills through the law school classes. Like I really enjoyed reading a ton of research papers from the law school professors. So when I interviewed every law school professor, I had to read their research. So I had to go through each paper, read through their research, and then type up a transcript to interview. And I really enjoyed reading that. I haven't done the booth interviews yet. I've only interviewed Dan Sachs as part of the Polsky Center. That's the person I've interviewed so far. But that's mostly what I'm doing. And also studying for the GMAT outside. We'll figure out which one I'm doing, but that's essentially what I'm doing right now. So yeah, hopefully that was helpful. And I went on about my LinkedIn. So yeah.
That was very, very helpful, Ken, because I was able to, like, as you were talking,
Yeah.
cross out question after question after question that I would be asking as follow-ups.
Okay.
So no, that is really like comprehensive and very impressive. You are doing quite a lot. You've definitely shown why you would be interested in the JD MBA program.
Yeah.
So why is now the right time? Like, what makes now the time for you to make this type of leap?
Right now is the right time because I really want to become a well-rounded leader in the public sector, and I need to build the skills I'm missing, like finance, accounting, economics, business administration, and an understanding of the private sector. I do have a minor in public policy, so I know how to talk to like lawyers and politicians, but as far as like the business side of things, I don't have a formal understanding of it. The only formal understanding I have is running my parents' small business, like delivering flowers to people and helping them out with legal documents and like balancing some accounting checks. But I kind of want like a comprehensive education through the Booth School of Business to build on the competencies I don't already have. And I believe that in order to make a difference through, let's say, entrepreneurship or politics, the transformational leadership provided by the Booth JD MBA program would be pivotal in that quest. And some of the programs that I've looked into are the Civic Scholars Program, its global network. Like I think the global network spans from to London and Hong Kong. My girlfriend her parents are from Hong Kong, and people in my startup group right now are from London. So I mean, I'm kind of meshing like with the London, Hong Kong kind of deal. So I think that proximity with Booth would be a fit for me. And then also UChicago is close to the Institute of Politics. So I wanted to talk to the new IOP director. I think her name is Heidi. Heidi, I want to like go talk to her about how she ran for office, like what's going on there. I wanted to also take classes with Eric Posner, who's counsel of the antitrust division. I don't know what that reaction means, but
No. He's impressive. His father's impressive as well. He's still, I don't think he comes back to law school as much anymore, but yeah, he's definitely an imposing figure. So.
Oh, okay. I don't know what the inside jokes about Eric Posner is, but I just know on the surface he's like an antitrust guy.
Yeah.
I mean, what have you taken a class with him? How is that?
I have not. I've not taken any classes with him. But there's a lot of cases that we go over, especially with his dad as one of the professors. I don't know if you were able to interview this professor, but they call him Dick Posner.
Dick Richard Posner
and Frank. Yeah, Dick Posner and Frank Easterbrook. Those are probably two of the most iconic figures when it comes to UChicago and case studies. So yeah, UChicago law.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about why is he called Dick Posner? I don't know if this is appropriate for.
Obviously it's short for Richard, but I think this particular professor kind of has a way of digging at the Posner family. Have very, I don't know. You'll have an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the Posners. I haven't heard too much about Eric. I've talked to some of his colleagues because we'll participate in these like seminars that allow you to have these very small group discussions with professor or a couple of professors. So yeah, they in those discussions are a little bit more candid about their colleagues, and it's kind of awesome to hear that interaction. But yeah, you'll hear some tidbits, some juicy bits.
Yeah.
And they from time to time talk about Eric Posner and Richard Posner,
Yeah.
and the Easterbrook bit. So
Well, it sounds really exciting, and I really would want to be in that seminar, just like getting grilled at, like by the positives.
yeah, no, they're actually really like there's something that you do outside of your first year of law school. So you'll do it like your second year or third year of law school, and there are these Greenberg seminars or just workshops or seminars that you can participate that are very small, a little bit more intimate spaces that you can ask and participate in group dialogue or whatnot about a specific topic that you can kind of like choose. So you can go from anything from healthcare to the history of policing in America to just topics about like the toxic environment that is corporate America. So yeah, there's a number of different topics that you can kind of like have these very like small scale discussions with a professor or maybe a couple of professors. So
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to take a Greenberg seminar. I actually spoke to Stephen Foster Jr. About he took like an attorney attorney general's class, and he really did not recommend it, but he said that was a Greenberg seminar. Yeah, so that's Greenberg seminars are something I would love to look into. I also want to add that I want to do a clinic. It's either through the Polsky Center with Dan Sachs, because I know that we discussed a little bit earlier, Brandon, about you doing you starting your own startup on shoes through the. I mean, if you want to advertise your shoes, like, go for it.
So no, it's a very early stage venture. We are looking at developing a shoe that can be used on multiple different surfaces. The background of the shoe is like have something that is sustainably built, so that we want to use sustainable practices, and we also want to make some kind of environmental impact, a positive environmental impact, obviously. And so there are a number of different ways that we can go about doing it. We can do it via the material, we can do it via the production, we can do it via the shipping, and we're trying to do a bit of all that in order to like provide a shoe that like allows consumers to use it in multiple different ways. So that means they don't have to necessarily purchase specific shoes to for instance play soccer in. I got to back it up a little bit. We are focusing on children, so this is like kids within the age frame of 4 to 10. So it's a kids multi-surface shoe. But yeah, the idea is to approach the environmental problem from a number of different ways, while also identifying and addressing pain points when it comes to the purchasing process, when it comes to the sizing process, when it comes to the amount of shoes that you have to buy for the various activities that a kid in that age range participates in, from soccer to basketball to I should just generalize it, say indoor and outdoor sports. So
I know there exists in the market one type of shoe that I really looked into is Allbirds. They have a sustainable shoe and clothing brand, and they also have a kids. How are you different from them?
So yeah, Allbirds is something that we kind of identified at the very beginning of this venture, that we were kind of like using as a inspiration for our shoe. How we're different from Allbirds. Allbirds weren't necessarily set up for kids, so they came out with the adult shoe. It was a wool shoe, a shoe that's made from wool, I think, from New Zealand, I believe. But anyway, it's more of a casual shoe. It was marketed as more of a casual shoe, and not necessarily marketed to kids. Now, I understand that they have since expanded, and they do offer shoes that are in kid sizes. Our company is focused on kids. So like our primary objective is to make kid shoes, and not only to make kid shoes, but to make a multi-surface shoe, a shoe that they can use that is actually built. So the tread pattern and the lug pattern on the bottom of the shoe is built so that it is conducive to play on multiple different surfaces. It's built from material that is sustainably sourced. It's built through sustainable production, and then the shipping happens. We want to make it stateside.
Yeah.
That's going to be very difficult, but our first step is having it done in this hemisphere, and eventually the goal is to have stateside production so that we are limiting that CO2 emission that comes from shipping overseas and things like that. So we are really trying to consolidate our value proposition at the time and refine our value proposition at the time. So that was a bit everywhere.
Okay.
And we definitely understand that. So that's something that we are in the process of shrinking down and making into a better package. So,
well, that sounds like an interesting proposition, and it'll definitely sell in Berkeley because we're all about sustainability out here. I don't know how it'll sell out because you want to go to Denver. I don't know how people will react out in Denver for sustainability. But in terms of like the kids thing, I actually every Sunday I teach like a Bible studies class for like 13 underprivileged kids as a part of the First Presbyterian Church, and there's a bunch of guys in there that are they're all under, I think, 10 years old, and they run around and play a lot, and some of them run around too much and they break apart their shoes. So I mean that's the perfect demographic. Maybe you can start with churches. I don't know, churches and those people, and they play around a lot.
I definitely agree, and I have I should have mentioned this before. I do have two daughters who kind of fall into that age range. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and we participate in various sports. They play at their church and at playgrounds as well. This is something that we get to experience every day, and so like our designs, our concepts are coming from just like interactions that we have on a day-to-day basis, and pain points that we as as parents, my wife and I, realize every day. So I think that is it's definitely helping us to attack the problem in a much more I guess intimate way, because it's something that hits close to home.
Yeah, and my sister, she's 8. That's a large age range. She does Taekwondo. I don't know, and she also runs around a lot. Do you think that's like an age range where you'll start talking? Or I mean, what is your ultimate age range? Is it like 0 to 10, 0 to 15? Like, what are you trying to monopolize on?
So when it comes to sizes, we're looking at sizes that fit in the age range of like 4 to 10. And that's because we've done a lot of like customer discovery. So we started off as like focusing on like cleats. Like we thought cleats would be like our niche, but we eventually, like as we talked to consumers, and it was actually cleats that were going to be directed at former competitive athletes. And that's why the age range is just shot down, because we were starting to get feedback from our consumers, and like we were understanding that like former competitive athletes have these loyalties that have existed from their time when they were playing sports competitively at a younger age, whether it be like in their younger, adolescent years or teenage years, and even as young adults. And I don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole, but we eventually pivoted to this age range, and we eventually tweaked the idea to like have a shoe that is something that would actually be used across multiple different sports, as opposed to emphasizing or focusing on one sport in particular. So I say that all to say that like the age range that we kind of like started to like really home in on was the 4 to 10-year-old, because we could potentially like go a little earlier and start off with smaller sizes that 2-year-olds can kind of wear, but we noticed that more people are putting their kids into sports or activities like that around like the 3 to 4-year-old age group. And then at or after 10, like there becomes and even though this market is pretty saturated, it becomes even more saturated, and the marketing is starting to be much more directive, and kids are providing a lot more input after 10. So you're having to change or adapt your marketing scheme, and that can get really expensive for a startup to have to market in so many different ways.
That reminds me of an HBS case study where if you market towards kids, like they're gonna want it a lot more. Like they're gonna tell their parents, "Hey, I want this," and that's a huge way to get a market. Have you tried doing that? Like just solely marketing on, I don't know, Cartoon Network and other, I don't know what kids are watching these days, TikToks or something. Yeah.
So our marketing, like we have yet to really formalize our marketing yet,
Yeah.
because we're still in product development. But
Okay.
we definitely brainstorm marketing ideas, and we've talked to marketing professors at Booth. We've talked to marketing people within our network, so individuals who are at different universities or who are at different companies, and their emphasis or their background is in marketing, to get a better understanding of how are we going to market this product and how can we do it effectively, because we got to market it not only towards the kids, but we got to market it towards the parents, because kids may or may not really care about like the sustainability aspects of the shoe. They may not care that the shoe is like environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
They may be concerned with like the aesthetics a bit more than that. And so we have to market or create the product in such a way that it is attractive to kids, but at the same time it's also attractive to parents. And we're really thinking millennials, because those are usually the ones who have kids at this point in the age range that we've assume are going to be our primary consumers.
Interesting. Well, I mean, that reminds me of a case study by on Patagonia. They have a sustainability model, and they've certainly monopolized on Berkeley, Stanford, or Menlo Park, as that matter, and all of New York City. So have you looked into what Patagonia did as a case study? Because a lot of people are just wearing it for the idea of sustainability, but it's slowly involved into this idea of Patagucci, which is like being
No, we've looked at several case studies, including Patagonia, Cotopaxi. We've looked at different like DTC types of case studies, like Warby Parker, and even Allbirds. So we've looked at all these different case studies, and it would be cool if you could like become like a trend-setting item, like Patagonia, like Cotopaxi, and people wear it as not only for its environmental impact, but because it's like a status symbol at this point. Like it's something that like projects a certain like lifestyle. This individual has this type of lifestyle, and you can see that through like what their choices of apparel. And so it would be awesome to get to that point, and then we see how they do it. Some of it you can try to recreate. Others of it seem to be much more like they caught the market at the right time. They caught like the industry at the right time. Timing is something that you can somewhat control, but sometimes not.
Okay, so timing, you're just waiting for the right moment. Like what stopping you from applying to Shark Tank or Y Combinator and just making something happen?
No, I wouldn't say that we're waiting for the right moment.
Okay.
We think we think the right moment is now. It's like within our timetable. There are a lot more people, like as we look through like the data, there are a lot more people who are being influenced by things like sustainability, things like an interest or concern of the environment when they're making purchasing decisions. So a lot more than there used to be. So you think about like the older generations, that wasn't really at the forefront of their minds when they were consuming products. Well, people are a lot more conscious about that now. And so this is a good enough time to, market a product like this, because there are more people aware and they're consciously shopping with that awareness. Is that their sole reason? No, people are still concerned with the price. People are still concerned with, the quality. There are a lot of other factors, but the factor of sustainability, the factor of having an environmentally impactful product is growing. And we think that we can kind of like, okay, we can jump in on that and still be able to address all these other factors as well. So.
I mean, I do have something to say about the data, right? Like the data doesn't lie, but in my opinion, it doesn't tell the whole truth.
Correct.
And sometimes there's, people don't answer honestly. And so why not, for example, just put your item into the market now and just see how it reacts? Just, like, similar to my parents' flower shop, we started out in April. We didn't know how to make flowers. My mom was like a hairdresser, and my dad was an Uber driver. And we just banded it together, and now we have a flower shop. And we just started like selling randomly, and then we made like $10,000 since. So why not start selling now and just trying it out in the market?
All right, two things. One, I love how this interview has changed from me interviewing you.
Wait, we can jump back to it.
No. But I'll go ahead and
okay.
Question, like, the data could lie. It could be not lie. It could be misleading. And then individuals might not answer because, especially in a I won't say an honest, but they might not realize that when they actually get to the point where they're about to make this purchase decision, that what they answered on the interview isn't exactly what's on the on the front of their minds when they're making the that final purchase. So what we have to do is we take the data and we look at it, and it suggests that, like, okay, people's behaviors are changing a bit, and so we want to be able to anticipate that behavioral change and to take advantage of it. But at the same time, that really, it's incumbent upon us to go out there and talk to customers. That's why, like, at the Polsky Center, they were really emphasizing, like, you can look at the data, you can look at that, the stats regarding the market, but you really need to go out there and talk to consumers, and consumers will tell you, like, what they've done in the past. So you've got to be, like, backwards looking. You've got to see what have you done, not what will you do, because projecting what a person do, like, anything, like, they could not, their kid could scream and they could put down the product and they could walk out the store because they had to handle their kid. Like, you don't know what they will do, but you do know what they did do. And so that's how you kind of, like, determine, like, you can figure out, like, what they have done in the past, and that will help you get a better idea, a better sense as to, like, will this product resonate with this particular target segment. So I agree. The data can be construed, but you have to talk to the customer.
Have you done user interviews? I know, for example, like, I'm taking this entrepreneurship class and I run a podcast, and so I'm really used to interviewing people. And as a part of the podcast and also the startup, the Speechless Flowers, we do a lot of user interviews, and we do it just like this. Have you been doing that? Have you been interviewing folks, like a couple of people, or? Yeah.
We've interviewed a lot of people.
Okay.
So our whole, like, I would say our first 6 months was just interviews. We just interview people to the point where we were like, you know what? Let's just go ahead and set up our own podcast, and that way it'd be an easier way to, like, talk to people in the industry and get more organic interview. And so, like, we thought about it. We didn't end up launching a podcast. We also thought about doing a blog or whatever. So you don't have to worry about any kind of competition to your own podcast. But, like, we did talk to a lot of people, and, like, we still do. We see as, like, young co-founders, or new, I should say, maybe not young, new co-founders. Like, we're wearing a lot of hats and we're doing a lot of things. And so, like, one of the hurdles that we're overcoming at this moment is, like, building out a team, like trying to build out a team so that people can actually do things, take some of the stuff that we have on our plate off our plate, and maybe do it better than what we were able to do it, with so many things going on. So we have set up and conducted a lot of interviews, and that's one of the reasons why we have made some early pivots, some early changes in, like, what our business plan is going to look like.
I know you mentioned earlier that you made a ton of pivots and you're researching a marketing plan. Have you started using, like, Google Trends, for example, like, to find what's going on in the world, or, like, all these other tools that Silicon Valley is using to help out your business?
We definitely looked at, like, the analytical tools behind Google to kind of, like, determine, like, okay, what are consumers doing, what's available to us for fairly cheap or free. We've been able to use that type of information to kind of, like, figure out, like, okay, or we've also employed a consulting club at the University of Wisconsin, some undergrad students,
Okay.
and they've been doing a lot of that work for us as well. So we kind of, that's another way that we were able to like offload some of that work, and then they'll give us like deliverables every 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and they'll kind of like show us like some data points, some analytics, and some other things that we've been putting on their plate to kind of offload some of the work that we're trying to accomplish as as this venture starts to pick up a bit of steam. So yeah, we do look at that. We do like make decisions sometimes off of pieces of that information, coupled a lot with what we get through like our conversations with individuals.
Yeah.
Even a conversation such as this will we were able to glean good information that will help us like compile data and recognize trends, recognize patterns, and then we were able to kind of like, okay, if we see it enough, be able to I guess react from a pattern or a trend that we've noticed.
Awesome. And I'm curious. So now I'm going to ask about the program, and feel free to ask me back because we have 6 minutes left. You mentioned a lot of data stuff because I know the UChicago booth program, they're very data driven. It's different from like HBS, which is more case studies. Could you tell me a little bit more about what it's like being a booth student and how it differentiates from, let's say, being let's say a Harvard MBA or like a Yale MBA or another school's MBA program? Like what's the advantage of booth and their data driven model that you found really helpful when you're now starting your own business, right?
Yeah. What's been very helpful, and also sometimes like the bane of my existence at Booth, is it's quant heavy. Like, so they they have that. It's a flavor of quant in every single class almost that you take it. So it's definitely data driven. So like to the umpteenth degree, like it's always there, it's always present, it's always a part of like what you're doing, what you're learning, and that definitely helps you when you're making decisions, and you're able to sometimes take the emotional element out of it, like out of the equation. Or I think there's always going to be an emotional element, but it's to what magnitude you allow it to make like an influence on your decision. And so if you're able to look at data points, if you're able to look at quantifiable information, as opposed to and I'm not saying that gut feelings are wrong. You're right. But like if you're able to like back up a gut feeling with quantifiable data, or maybe you're able to dispel a bias that you've been interacting, you think is a gut feeling, but it's actually a bias, and like the data shows that like, okay, you're actually acting upon a bias and not upon like real concrete data. So like I think that's been one of the benefits of being in a program like this, as opposed to one where you're looking at case studies. Now we look at our fair share of case studies. Like case studies are definitely a part of it, but we look at it maybe a little bit differently. And I can't like conclusively say any of this because I don't know enough about Harvard's or Yale's or Stanford's programs to say like, these are really like what delineates us from those programs. But I know what we do at Booth, and like this has been useful for me as a as a very young entrepreneur, like be able to like, okay, make decisions, even like decision modeling, like to be able to do that. I think is very useful, especially as you're trying to work on limited budgets and limited time frames. You have to make decisions that are solid, and you want to make them based off of stuff that really matters.
Yeah, and it seems like data really matters at University of Chicago, and I know at Berkeley, like they funded like a huge data science program. So if you need more data scientists, there's a ton of students at Berkeley. Like it's very much encouraged at Berkeley to major in data science. Like I haven't fallen into that trap yet, but everyone around me is data science. So if you need some data scientists, come to Berkeley, email some Berkeley people.
So yeah, my co-founder is all about data. Like he went to Wharton undergrad. And then he's now he's also a JD MBA student.
Yeah.
So he is we play fantasy football, and he brings analytics data. Like he's data about everything. Like it's to the umpteenth degree. So
yeah. Did you predict like that like let's say the Bills would bounce back, or the Vikings would, or the Chargers upset the 49ers? Did he predict that, or no?
I don't know. I haven't seen data on that, but he'll show me the analytics on
Okay.
individual players. So like that's really like the focus on, like, especially when it comes to fantasy football. Like we really like look at the individual players and like their projections based upon like who they're playing, where they're playing, that kind of stuff. So
we have 1 minute and a half left. Feel free to grill me with questions, and I'll just like answer it quickly. So go for it.
All right, so I'll go back to some like typical like booth interview type questions.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember if this was asked during my law school interview or if this was asked during my booth interview. But they want to like figure out a moment of I won't call it weakness, but like a moment where you had to I'll just say, since we're talking business, like had to pivot, like you had to change what you were doing, and why, and how did you recognize it, and how did it end up playing out?
Yeah. In the beginning, we were selling flowers, we thought, to anniversaries or for gifts, but then we quickly realized that there wasn't a market for that, because stores like Whole Foods, Target, other places, they have flowers already. So we pivoted towards funerals and weddings. Like we've monopolized on that market out in the South Bay area, and we've been making a ton of bank ever since.
That was great. I wish I could ask more follow-ups, but I see that we have less than a minute. I don't know what the time is.
We could also, if you want to continue, I don't know how much time you have left, Brandon. Do you want to redo this, or do you want to grill me, or like we can just re-enter this?
I can maybe go for like 5 or so more minutes. I have like I'm studying also for the MPRE, which is coming up for me on Monday. But
is that the real estate thing?
No, the MPRE is like a professional responsibility for like lawyers. So like you have to professional responsibility course at the law school.
The NPER course. I don't know what that is, but you mentioned it was something.
It's the MPRE. I'm drawing a blank on what the acronym stands for. I have a little book right here in front of me. Maybe it has it on like the first pages. It doesn't, but like it's just a course for professional responsibility, or it's a test on professional responsibility for an attorney. So it's something that every attorney has to take. It's just like the bar. Most states require the bar before you're able to start practicing law in a certain jurisdiction. So
did you already do the bar, or I don't know what you're
doing? No. I'll be taking the bar this coming summer.
Wow. And UChicago has like a very, very high pass rate, right? So I'm curious as to what.
Yeah, I'm hoping not to bring it down. So
I'm sure you won't. What stands out with UChicago's teaching, or that helps it get the bar rate passed away? Or is it because of the admissions process itself, like the students are motivated, or what's going on?
Chicago? Yeah, I would probably lean more on like it being the caliber of student that they admit. Yeah, students who are, I won't say like type A, but they're definitely focused on academic success.
Yeah.
So that kind of like, bakes into like each and every student, like the desire to pass the bar, the desire to like prepare well, because they're all failure adverse. So yeah, I think that's what keeps the bar passage rate at Booth at the law school pretty high. So,
and I heard that, from stereotypes, that the school is very serious. Other stereotypes as conservative. Others say it's microeconomic analysis. Like being a student there, what has been your experience? Because I would love to be in a very serious environment.
So yeah, all that is very true to a certain extent. Like economics is huge at UChicago. Like there's economics in every single thing that they do. As far as like the seriousness goes, and like its reputation as being a very conservative institute, I think like when you compare it to other like law schools out there,
like Berkeley
in general are very liberal, progressive minded. Like if you compare it to other law schools out there, then yeah, maybe UChicago leans a bit more right than most law schools. But if you're comparing it to any other social environment, like no, it's probably more progressive leaning. Like there's a much bigger population of liberal or progressive minded students than there are conservative students or right leaning. So
I mean, for me, being a Berkeley student, I was very surprised to have phone calls with people from the Federalist Society and then have to hear their perspective. And that was, I only hear the conservative side from my grandpa, and I thought he was crazy. But then I started listening to a bunch of Fed Stock people, and that's an interesting perspective I never had at Berkeley. So
yeah, maybe that's one of the other things that Chicago's kind of University of Chicago is known for, and it's like that Chicago style, like that Chicago approach, where they not only desire to hear, but they make it they facilitate other voices. They want to make sure that each side is heard. Sometimes to the very detriment, like people like, oh, this side shouldn't be allowed to speak because what they're having to say is at the very least people feel derogatory or offensive.
Right.
Chicago kind of like takes this approach like, no, like these perspectives should be heard or seen or whatever. So yeah, that's maybe a little different, but I like that's something that they kind of like pitch at the very beginning. Like this is the Chicago way of doing it, the Chicago style. So yeah, that's I don't know.
I'm gonna ask you one last question before you can grill me. It's that have you taken class with Jeffrey R. Stone? I had an interview with him and about First Amendment stuff, or he's a First Amendment.
No, I have not. No, it's that I had not even heard of the individual. Is that a professor?
That's perfect. Jeffrey Stone.
Oh, Stone.
Yeah.
No, yes, I have heard of Stone, but no, I have not taken it. Sorry, I have like these guys blowing leaves. I should close this window, and I could.
Are you in Chicago right now, or are you staying somewhere else?
I am. So weirdly enough, I'm actually a resident head at one of the dorms. So I'm a resident, family's here on campus, apartment in the North Campus dorms, resident heads. Very interesting situation. Also very cool because we get to interact with the undergrads a whole lot. And I have conversations like this, I feel like 2 or 3 times a month with undergrads interested in the JD MBA, the JD program, the MBA program, or the JD MBA program. So, well,
it's great to hear. I'm glad to be in the presence of someone who's a residence head. I know Josh Davis is also a resident.
Josh Davis, yeah, that's a buddy of mine. Josh is a real buddy of mine. He actually convinced me to do this. So yeah.
What? He convinced you to wait. You guys are all in a group chat or like what's going on?
No. I talk to Josh daily. Like he's one of my good friends here. Yes, Josh talked me into being a resident head.
Okay.
I play flag football with them. We're on a lot of IM teams. So yes.
Well, I mean, if I enter, let's say 23, I won't be able to play IM with you guys, right? Because you guys are already graduated.
Yeah, unless we have some kind of like alumni team or.
Okay. Hopefully it's in the area. I mean, yeah, feel free to start grilling me with questions because I keep grilling you with questions. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think like in your big like spiel earlier, like that first walk me through your resume question, you were able to address a lot of these questions that come up on the booth interview regarding like why it makes sense for you to want to be at booth and wanted to actually be a part of like the JD MBA program. But what do you see yourself? Or where do you see yourself, after graduation? What do you see yourself getting out of this program? Like, what's another reason why, or really like elaborate on the reasoning why you want to be in this program?
Yeah, I'm going to answer a tangentially similar question. Is what is your
why booth? That's what they say in the
why booth?
But I'll say booth and law school.
Well, why booth is I think I answered earlier. I want to become a well-rounded leader in the public sector, and I need to build up the skills in business. I already have a minor in public policy, so I don't need to get an MPP or an MPA. And I think that having an analytical mindset through the JD and the MBA side will prepare me to become a, whether it's I in long term become vice president of the United States, I'm able to really interact with the private sector really well and interact with the public sector really well. And I think a JD MBA would definitely help me with that.
Well, let me qualify it a little bit better.
Sure.
Why Booth? Like, why specifically Booth?
Why
Like,
specifically Booth? Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that can be done, maybe at Berkeley. I'm like, maybe not as well as UChicago. I'm just kidding. Like, why Booth? Why specifically?
I love UC Berkeley. I love like the environment here and everything. And I have a ton of friends here. I don't even know if my girlfriend is willing to go out to Chicago just yet. That's the hard part, convincing her to. She's from LA.
My wife didn't.
What?
She didn't want to go to Chicago. She's from San Diego. She's from San Diego.
Wait. Okay. Funny story. My girlfriend wants to live in San Diego. So what? I don't know how we can have that discussion another time, but yeah. The hard part is convincing her to go to Chicago. And why Chicago? I feel like I've already experienced Berkeley, and I have a buddy out in Stanford. I experienced that, and my professor, he's from Harvard, and and my roommate, I think he wants to go to Harvard to medical school. So, and I have another buddy of mine who's going to Sloan. So it's like, I don't want to do what they're doing. I want to be different and go to Chicago. And there's a lot of programs that I've looked into, like the Polsky Center, working on during Dan Sachs, or even I think there's the innovation clinic with Emily Underwood. I wanted to do that as well. And UChicago is like very, it has everything you need to run a campaign. I think Barack Obama was there. And I don't know, he was like writing a book for a couple of years, and he ran for president. So like I don't know, UChicago has something that helped him become president. So I want to tap into what Obama had when he was there. So and a JD MBA would provide that opportunity for me.
Yeah, I think that's really good, because I think back to your answer about like the innovation clinic, for instance, with Professor Underwood. She's been very helpful. Like, she's been integral in like our development of our venture. So we've discussed a lot of things with, especially like from a legal perspective, and when we're talking about incorporating, when we're talking about setting ourselves up or structuring to bring on outside investors. And I've been working at the Institute for Justice clinic on entrepreneurship, and that's also really cool because you get work with like local community startups. Obviously, these aren't being incorporated in Delaware or anything, so you're not going to be using that type of I mean, you can kind of use that type of like knowledge, but it gives you a chance to be much more community like focused, and like it really is cool to kind of like work with these like these community startups, especially some that are being founded by underrepresented minorities or low income individuals. So like it's extremely rewarding, and also at the same time you learn a whole lot. So yeah, I think the clinics, the different programs, this Polsky Center is amazing. Working with those individuals is amazing. So yeah, those are all things that are extremely attractive when you consider the University of Chicago as a whole, or Booth, or the law school. So
that's really interesting that you mentioned the IJ clinic, because I was actually looking into it, because I make the commute up to Berkeley, take an entrepreneurship class, drive down to South Bay area, like San Jose, and go to my parents. So my parents live in Section 8 housing, and they're on food stamps, and I'm helping them out with their business. So when I'm out in Chicago too, I'd be happy to be a part of the IJ clinic, do the same thing I did with my parents, start out their business, but help out underrepresented minorities out in Chicago. So that's something I'm open to doing. There's a ton of options. I heard that you get into a lottery, and you might get into a clinic based on the lottery. So I don't know how it works. Maybe it's like a Harry Potter sorting hat, but hopefully we get the IJ clinic. IJ clinic sounds cool. Yeah.
IJ clinic is cool. Innovation clinic, really cool. Again, you'll probably be working with a lot more sophisticated companies in the innovation clinic. A lot of Delaware incorporations there. Whereas like IJ, again, it's mom pop, it's like low income, underrepresented. So it's two different kind of flavors, but you're still working with entrepreneurs. You're working with people who are really trying to launch ventures. but yeah, those both of those are really good programs. There is like a lottery, but the lottery is mostly set up for like the seminars. The other ones are it's a bidding process, so you kind of like bid on the clinics that you want to like I guess be a part of, and got to bid high, I guess. If the bidding structure is different than Booth, like Booth has like you have points that you can use to bid,
Right.
whereas like the law school has like a rack and stack, so you rank in order of preference. So I like the Booth points because as a 3-year JD MBA student, we had a whole bunch of points because
Oh wow.
programs accelerated, so we don't have as many classes that we have to take, so we can like really throw a lot of points towards a particular class that we want to be in.
Awesome. Well, it seems like now that you're I don't know, senior 3L, you're able to
3L, yeah, I guess
like your pick.
last year.
I mean, why did you? I'm curious of why you did JD MBA. Like let's say why 1 + 1 = 3. Like why did you choose that instead of just do the Booth program or just do the JD program? Why both for you personally for you?
For me, I mean, I know we kind of like discussed it. This is prior to the recording. That I had, and maybe I didn't emphasize it as being like something that I really wanted to do. I wanted to, to get into law. I was interested, and that interest was a catalyst, or the catalyst behind that interest was family and friends who had already gone down that path, and they were doing that kind of thing. And so, like that, was the real reason why I even started looking at it. And then I started listening to podcasts on it, and started really like doing my research on it. And then I figured, like, you know what, that is something that I kind of want to do. At the same time, I was transitioning from the Air Force, thinking about flying, knowing that I wanted to go to like a guard unit or a reserve unit that afforded me time to actually have a career outside of the military. Law started to make a whole lot more sense. In the background, I still wanted to do entrepreneurial type work. I still wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I knew that I was going to do that at some point. I didn't know when, but I was going to do that. I really thought it was going to be through real estate. Like that was something that I was kind of like doing then, and still kind of dabbling in now. And so it kind of all started coming together as I started to really focus in on UChicago as being a spot that I wanted to land. And then it really just like neatly came together after my first quarter at the law school, when I really kind of like got interested in the dual degree program and got like more information, started talking to attorneys who had gone through similar programs. I remember one of the attorneys who had gone through Penn's program, so he did Wharton and he had gone through Penn Law, and telling me about like, you really need to know why you want to do it. You got to understand your why. Like, why are you doing this? And kind of hold to that why, because it's going to be a little bit more difficult, especially in this like accelerated program. You're not going to have like the same kind of 3L experience that your counterparts, your cohort will have. So you got to really understand your why when it comes to it, and it's got to be a pretty good why, because you got to hold on to that why throughout that whole entire process. And I knew that I wanted to like have my own, business. I wanted to run my own company, and I also wanted to use this affinity that I had for the law in that process. And so it made sense for me to kind of combine the two. And that became my internalized why, because I wanted to be able to use both of these degrees to help launch a venture. So that was my why.
Well, that sounds like a great why. And before I continue and asking about the San Diego situation, I want to say my immediate career goal, if you wanted to ask, that is
no, definitely enough about
me. I mean, the official one on my personal statement that I'm going to submit, unless I change my mind next couple months, which hopefully not. Either corporate law, state assembly member, but also doing Marine Corps as a reservist. So that's my sort of idea right now. You can grill it if you want, but is that possible? Like, are there some people who are pursuing politics through the JD MBA program? Because I know there's some case studies, like, I don't know, Mitt Romney. That's one guy that did that path, but or I don't know, Obama is there too. So there's like a wide range of people that did JD MBAs or are at UChicago. So what do you think of getting a JD MBA for that purpose?
So I think there is some merit behind that. I remember talking this maybe it's 2 summers ago now, to a first year associate at Wilson Sonsini.
Okay.
And he was telling me that he was actually moving to a more part-time role at Wilson Sonsini. I was like, oh yeah, why? What's the reasoning behind like going and reducing your hours there? He's like, well, I want to get involved in politics. I'm running for political office. And like, oh wow, he was kind of like breaking down the reasoning why he had kind of like gone. I think he had also done like a JD MBA. He had gone down that path, and he was saying that one of the things that a lot of political opponents point to, especially when you're running a platform on a more progressive model, is that you don't have any kind of like business background or understanding of like economics and how things kind of work. And that's usually been like one of the fail points for political figures in that spectrum. And so he kind of wanted to have that type of background. He felt that it was important to have that type of background prior to launching his political career. And so I thought that was very interesting. And so I say that to say that, yeah, that does make sense. I've seen others, specifically that anecdote, like do that. They've used a program like this to kind of get their feet wet in some areas that really have some profound like interest when it comes to like what constituents are concerned about and what like other political figures are able to point out as a fail point. So
if I were to, let's say, envision myself a University of Chicago JD MBA program, how would you, and I wanted to become a politician someday, what concentration would you suggest I take for the Booth program? Because I know there's leadership, economics, all the other stuff. Like, so what would you suggest I do within Booth?
So if you're doing the 3-year accelerated program, you don't really have an opportunity to concentrate on anything. You kind of like are a generalist. You can still kind of tweak your program to focus on something. I focused on entrepreneurship.
Yep.
I guess you can be more economics leaning. Now, anything that you take is going to have an economics flavor to it. But if you wanted to kind of like really like lean into that, that might be something that you can use. And again, I have no like political aspirations, but I would assume that you can kind of use to like launch a political platform is to have like a real like an economics like background or something of that nature. So maybe focusing on economics is something that would be attractive to someone who's really trying to get into politics later on in their career.
Well, I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go there and try to take more economics classes because, my public policy minor is only telling me what politically makes sense, but I don't know the math behind a lot of policies. In terms of entrepreneurship, I think I'm doing that at Berkeley, the most entrepreneurial place on the planet. So I think I'm done with entrepreneurship for now, but I'd love to continue to advise startups while I'm at the JD MBA. So I'm looking to transition into the political world and do entrepreneurship on the side because I've been doing that for 2 years now. So I mean, before we sign off and talk about other stuff, do you have any more questions for me, or do you want to talk about anything else?
No, I guess I'll kind of like reiterate like the economics piece. Like I think like the more I was able to like consider it, I think that is definitely a way to go, especially coming out of a University of Chicago, which is known for its economics. And so like being able to do that here would be, I think, would be big. I think it would be really big. So yeah, that tidbit, that like shameless plug for UChicago. Threw that in there. As far as any other kind of questions, I really think that we've like talked a whole bunch, or more than what your interview will entail, and we've gotten into a whole lot. You're very interesting individual with a very like unique background, which is super cool, and I would see being a very attractive candidate.
And Brandon, you are really interesting person too. So if you want to join the PayPal mafia, like I have a bunch of buddies at Stanford that would recruit you, and then you can start the web 3.0 revolution. And become a billionaire like them. So come to Silicon
That's in the
Valley.
recording. Oh yeah, that's
Oh,
there. It's
yeah. I mean,
I hold you to it. I'll hold you to
if
it.
that's one of your aspirations, like I'll refer you to them, and you can do the entrepreneurship stuff because I'm transitioning out of here. So
Yeah, I don't know. I'm all about entrepreneurship, and yeah, I'm definitely interested. So feel free to connect me, and I'll definitely connect you to the individuals that we discussed in terms of like other JMBAs, especially ones who kind of done it, who did it like when they knew they wanted to do it, so they did it at the very beginning, as opposed to someone like me who kind of snuck in the back door.
I might actually consider doing your option, but like I'll let you know once I take my LSAT or GMAT in January, and that'll inform me what my best chances are. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, best of luck on that.
Thanks.
Best of luck on the studies. So yeah, I know about the standardized tests as I prepare for one right now. So
Well, best of luck to you on your standardized testing, and best of luck to myself, and let's this. Right.